want to talk to you about today is a vision that I have that I share with Jim Womack in a different way. When I first got involved in the Lean initiative, and Jerry convinced me Lean was all about people, I had an opportunity to meet several of the founding thought leaders in Lean, Jim, Norm Bodak, George Clemensaker, and talk to them about the concepts embodied in Lean. And when I met with Jim up in Boston, Jim and Helen at LEI, I was struck by a statement Jim made that I think all of you will relate to. Jim felt a sense of disappointment that the concepts of Lean, as powerful as he articulated them in his book, and others have, had not changed the world. In my journey, similar to Jim's in a different path, have the same aspiration that people-centric leadership could change the world as we know it to the world that we are intended to live in together. And so what I would say to you is from this talk, I'm going to dedicate this to Jim and his hope that today we can, with this new vision of AME developed by some of the thought leaders in AME, we can change the world as we know it. And Jim's vision of changing the world through the concepts of Lean are real because it's the most powerful concept of leadership I have seen in my 40 years of leadership. So that's my goal today, for Jim to leave knowing his dream will come true and all of you can actualize Jim's dream. I'm going to start off by describing what I think all of you will relate to very easily. Gallup did a survey a few years ago to try and find the source of happiness. I think all of you in this room aspire to a sense of happiness and purpose in your life for yourself and those members of your family that you care so much about. And so Gallup did a survey thinking that it was going to be wealth, and they found it wasn't wealth because when people make a certain level of income, it no longer provides happiness. They thought it would be your health, which we all know how important our health is, but people take their health for granted, they found. They found the number one source of happiness in the world is a good job working in a company with people you care about. You have the power in this room to create happiness for the 12 million people that work in manufacturing in America. What we're talking about and what came from the dialogue of the thought leaders at AME that gathered together under our sponsorship is we're talking about enriching lives and therefore building communities. The very communities that you and I live in could be dramatically improved, enriched by the initiatives we're going to talk about here. If we walk out into one of your manufacturing plants and we look at a machine tool you acquired and we notice that it's not operating at the capacity we bought it for, the metrics tell us we need to do something about it because we want clearly to realize the potential for which we justified the purchase of that machine tool or that production line. Well, I will tell you from what I'm going to share with you right now, if you walk into your plants, you don't need to look at the red lights blinking on the machine tool. You need to look in the faces of the people that are impacted by the initiatives we're taking. And what surveys tell us is that 3 out of 4 people in this country don't like the company they work for or don't like the job they're doing. 7 out of 8 people in this country, your mothers, your fathers, your brothers, your sisters, your friends, your sons and your daughters, work for an organization, probably yours, that feel that they don't care about them. We have a leadership crisis in this country that is destroying the very fabric of the culture that we value so much in our country. There's other signs of this crisis. Gallup surveyed in the manufacturing industry said that 70% of the people employed in manufacturing are not engaged in what they are doing. How on earth can you realize the ideas that you're going home from this conference from if the people that you want to share this with are not engaged? 20% hate going to work. And finally, in the bars in America, on Friday, what do we celebrate? Thank God it's Friday. Our hope, our vision is there's going to be, thank God it's Monday. Get away from the wife, the kids, and get to work among people I care about in a good job. Now, in terms of the initiatives that you all are so passionately engaged in Lean, 70% of the companies in this country, including the Air Force, the healthcare industry, government, have embraced these powerful concepts of Lean. But only 24% of those that are engaged in it are showing significant results. No wonder these conferences have the attendance they do. It's not working. And only 2% achieve success. And we define success as being a truly lean organization, or that continuous improvement becomes part of the fabric of your culture. So we have a crisis. Jim told me at my meeting at LEI that 97 out of 100 companies that begun the lean journey, most of you, will fail to become truly lean organizations, as he articulated in his book. If that's true, don't you all have a problem? Isn't it insanity why you keep coming back? Doing the same thing. Since I've been on this journey, I've seen we keep continually trying to do the same thing over and over again, and we get the same results. And I hear, when I speak about this around the country, and I talk to people, what they tell me is, you know, our people just don't get it. You know, my experience of our 7,000 people around the world is your people get it. They are hungry for it. But we don't know how to bring that to them. It's the leadership issue. So this group of thought leaders came together and they said, process without inspiration is unsustainable. Enterprise excellence, our lean, is not sustainable without people-centric leadership. And an analogy we came up with depicted in this picture is a very simple analogy. Let's assume the founders of Lean designed the finest performing engine in the world. That through internal combustion, that engine could create immense power for the car that it was put in. But somebody forgot that you need to put gasoline in the engine. People-centric leadership is the gasoline that we forgot to put in this incredible engine, and we can't figure out why it doesn't work. Because if you can't combine people-centric leadership, you can't engage people fully in these powerful concepts that Jim articulated. I was particularly touched that this group of thought leaders who came together in aspiring to a new vision for AME chose the word renaissance. Renaissance in American manufacturing. I thought American manufacturing was dying. I thought we were having trouble attracting young men and women to careers in manufacturing because we were losing the battle to retain jobs in America in manufacturing. But they chose, having talked about people-centric leadership, the power of combining these two, they chose the word renaissance. A renaissance in American manufacturing by combining people and process to create value for all stakeholders, not just the shareholders, but all those people whose lives we touch in the process of bringing the concepts of leans to our organization. I would say to you that along the journey, when we stepped into lean, we stepped into lean for the reason that we saw it because Jerry convinced us it was all about people, and we were trying to take our people-centric leadership to every corner in our organization in the world, and we saw the disciplines of lean that allowed us to do this. And then I've reflected on that journey, and what I've realized, and I think it's unfortunate that we named the study of the Toyota production system lean. What is lean about? Lean is about waste elimination. How many in this room get excited about waste elimination? I've never met anybody. I gave a talk in front of a major consumer products company a couple of years ago to their global operational team because they had seen our lean initiatives and they were impressed by them and they wanted me to share them with their global team because they were on the lean journey. And I said to the senior executive before I began my talk, why is it you've embraced lean? So when I speak before your group, I know why. And he said, to improve margin on our product. I said, boy, I'll bet that's inspiring for your team. So Renaissance gives us a hope that is a rebirth. I want to tell you a story about one of your colleagues here named Dick Ryan. Dick Ryan was fortunate enough to be a part of the wire mold organization and embraced lean back in the 1980s, I believe, and see the profound change it made on the wire mold organization. He then went on to become a consultant in the field of lean to try and help all of you embrace lean in the way Dick did. And I happened to be paired up with Dick randomly at a golf course in Oregon. And of course, I had to hear in the course of trying to distract me from my swing about the metrics of wire mold. It was all about the numbers. And by the time we got towards the back nine, I started to say to Dick, well, Dick, I have this vision because Jerry Solomon convinced me of the wisdom of lean. I said, I have this vision of trying to create people-centric leadership and lean. And Dick said to me, if you could do that, from what you've said, it could change the world. Dick joined us, and I want to share with you Dick's aha moment, because he reflects the journey many of you are on. Dick's aha moment in our company was in a report out session. We asked people, how does it make you feel? Not just the numbers. So here's the story of Steve, pictured here in our Green Bay operation. Steve was a part of a lean initiative in our company, and we were having a lean conference because we were introducing it, and our VP of operations emailed me and said, you might want to go down in the plant. There's a group of people that took a lean initiative and made a profound difference on a project for Procter & Gamble. So I said, well, why don't you have the team come in and talk to all of our presidents instead of me going out there? So Steve and two of his colleagues walked into this meeting the next morning to talk to our presidents, and he did what all of you hear. He talked about improving quality, reducing lead time, contributing new ideas, all the things you talk about every day in these conferences. I don't know what caused me to ask Steve this, but at the end of this metrics report out, I said to Steve, how does it make you feel? How has it touched your life? And it was profound. And Steve said, do you know what it's like to go into work where you punch a card, you go to your workstation, you're told what to do, you get 10 things right and nobody says a word, you get one thing wrong and they chew your ass out. He said they complain about how much you're paid and your benefits, but they don't give you the tools you need to do the job. And when you go home at night, you don't feel very good about yourself. Since we've embraced people-centric leadership and lean, I feel I've contributed to making it better, and I feel better about myself. And when I go home, I feel like I'm a better person because I feel like who I am and what I do matters to this company now. And I'm going to finish this story in a minute. The Industrial Revolution, when we got this group of thought leaders together, we went back to the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution, kind of epitomized by Henry Ford and mass production of the Model T Ford, was about process improvement, about mass production that created great economic benefit to individuals, community, because it brought better paying jobs, it brought more economic stimulus to our communities, and it helped America become a world power through the power we had in exporting goods and services around the world. But I don't ever remember in my education or in my dialogue since my education ever talking about the human aspect other than to take the craftsmanship and replace it with a task. I entered the workforce in the late 1960s. And I remember one of my first meetings at our company in the environment of this flat world that Thomas Friedman talks about, where we're having to compete in the world. The dominance we had enjoyed in the early part of the century was giving way to more international price and technology competition. The first meeting we had is how we might move a product line from St. Louis in our union plant to a non-union plant in Arkansas, where we could go from $8 an hour to $4 an hour. And the logic, the math is pretty simple. It would help us improve the margin and be more competitive in that product line. We subsequently, obviously, in studying some of the organizations like the great company in St. Louis, Emerson Electric, that did a lot of this, they told us that it was not so much the labor savings that you got, the wage rate savings, is the productivity gains getting out of the work rules of the union environment. That was the first thrust we had of trying to address international competition to try and move to more competitive environments from a labor cost. That led, obviously, Arkansas soon lost out to Mexico, to Brazil, Eastern Europe, and now China. We've had this theme in my career in business of looking for somebody in the world who will work for the lowest money possible, and we justify that because we're taking people off the farms in China and giving them some level of income, 50 cents an hour. It is, in our journey, we have determined, because we are the combination of 60 acquisitions all over the world, it is our passion today that we can pay people fairly in Toledo, Ohio, in Clearwater, Florida, in Greenville, South Carolina, in Chicago, Illinois, in Minneapolis. If we treat them superbly, we can compete globally, and we can help sustain the middle class that we are losing in this country. When we lose American manufacturing jobs, we are losing the very middle class that was part of the strength of our communities around this country. We can reverse, through this renaissance and these ideas, the loss of manufacturing when we release the human potential. Leadership is about being stewards of the lives entrusted to you every day. It is not about telling. I took management classes in my undergraduate degree. I got a management degree, and I got a job in management. So what did I try and do? I tried to manage. Do you know anybody in your life you can manage? What I realized, it's just the opposite of what I was taught and what I experienced in the real world. Leadership is about being a good steward of the lives entrusted to you. Very similar to being a parent. Caring about the people whose lives you affect every day. Where did this come from? The revelation came to me, the aha moment came to me when I was sitting at a wedding. I was watching a friend of mine watch his daughter, which many of you probably have done by now, that precious ceremony where we walk our daughter down the aisle in front of all of our friends and family to celebrate this union. And when we get up to the altar, we take the hand of our daughter and we give it to this young man, and we say, ceremonially, I give this, my daughter, to be wed to this young man. And you go sit down next to your wife and you hold her hand. Now, any father here who is in that ceremony knows that is the words you said, but it is not what you meant to say. Right? What you meant to say is, look at young man. Her mother and I brought this child of our bodies into this world, and we expect you to continue the stewardship we have of this precious young lady, strengthened by your marriage so that she can be what she is meant to be in this world, and together you two can create families and carry on this tradition. And when I thought about that, what he really meant to say, I all of a sudden realized that the 7,000 people that walk in our plant around the world are somebody's precious child that has been entrusted to us, as we did this young lady to a man, so that that person can realize their gifts and have a sense of meaning and purpose in their lives, which you in this room have a chance to give them. It's not about numbers, it's about lives. Everyone's precious life. Simon Sinek is a leading author in the field. He wrote the book, Finding Your Why. He's like the number 3 TED Talk in the world. 12 million people have tried to find their why. People around the world, organizations, individuals, because all of us want to know our why as an organization, as a team, as individuals. Simon Sinek came because he heard of people-centric leadership. He came to visit our business. And after 2 days talking with our people, he said the following: people think I'm a nutty idealist because I believe if you randomly tap somebody on the shoulder in the streets of New York and say, do you like your job? They'll say, no, I don't like my job. I love my job. That's his dream. And he said that he's no longer, as a result of his visit to our company, a nutty idealist, because he saw what he dreamed of. People who feel valued, working among people they care about. Simon, just a week ago, 10 days ago, turned in the manuscript for his second book, which is called Leaders Eat Last. I think you're all eating now, so I don't think it applies to this group. Where did Simon come up with the theme of this book? Simon's book, which will be published the end of this year, is all about what I'm talking about right now. It's all about his awakening to people-centric leadership. And why did he come up with this expression, eaters eat last? Because it's a military, officers eat last. It is about service to others that we have in the military that he admires so much. And so I was at his 40th birthday party a week ago in New York, and Simon wanted me to share this with you. In the military, they give medals to those who are willing to sacrifice themselves so that others may gain. And he uses the example of Johnny Bravo, the pilot, who flies a $123 million jet in Afghanistan to defend at all cost the men on the ground. In business, he said, we give bonuses to those who are willing to sacrifice others so that we may gain. Have you ever noticed when we announce large layoffs, share prices go up? As we destroy lives, we get rewarded in business. Simon's statement is, why don't we have Johnny Bravos in business who see leadership as a profound responsibility for others, not for themselves? So, you're going to hear Simon firsthand. His book is primarily about what he experienced in our company and the United States Air Force. All of this led us to the conclusion that there must be millions of people represented by the firms in this room. If you embrace Jim's dream that we can change the world, and we add to Jim my dream that truly human leadership will change the world, and we combine enterprise excellence, we can change the world because we can profoundly touch the lives of people, which is the fabric of our country. As Maria Elena said, if it exists, it's possible. And we identified, with the help of the AME leadership team, a group of CEOs in American businesses who embrace people-centric leadership in their own way, and we came together to talk and to share our thoughts and passion for this new AME vision, where we combine the human element with the process environment to shape the lives of the people who we are stewards of. If it exists, it must be possible. Simon saw it, AME saw it. We can profoundly touch the lives of the people entrusted to you, and truly human leadership is the ingredient that is missing in this formula. So, we describe leadership with 3 words, the 3 Ps: people, purpose, and performance. It starts with our fundamental responsibility for the lives of the people we invite to join us in this journey. The way you interact, the programs you develop, the way you implement the concepts of lean will profoundly shape, as it did for Steve, profoundly shape their life. So it starts with people, not products, people, the lives you ask to join, around an inspiring purpose, not to improve margin. Do you honestly think your people are inspired to improve margin? They're inspired to share their gifts towards a purpose, to come together in meaningful ways and to feel validated for who they are and what they do. And then we got to perform. We have to create value. That's what allows us to be good stewards of people. You need to have a good job so you can provide for your family. In companies, we need to create income so we can be good stewards of the lives of the people entrusted to you. So it's all 3. There's a restaurant where I live named Boogie's, and it has a sign on the door. It says, quality, price, and service. Pick any 2. People, purpose, and performance. It's not 2 out of 3. It takes all 3 in harmony to create exceptional organizations that validate the worth of people. I also want you to know that not only have we had tremendous leadership success, but several professors at Georgetown University in Washington and Washington University in St. Louis have been studying this journey, And they asked us if they could bring academic rigor to validate our premise that we measure success by the way we touch the lives of people. They designed, with academic standards, a questionnaire that they took to 2 of our largest plants. One that's a union UAW plant in Green Bay, one a non-union plant in Akron, Ohio. And they did a survey to see if they could validate, are we touching the lives of people? Remember, 88% of the people in this country say that they work for an organization that doesn't care about them. In this case, 79% of the people surveyed said they feel they work for an organization that cares for them, number one. And this includes our union team members, the UAW, that we worked very productively with in Green Bay. And a sense of altruism came from this. That is, caring for others without expecting anything in return. Isn't that the kind of organization you want to be a part of? That people care about you without expecting anything in return? What we find is that when we care about Steve and Mary and Bill and George and Fred, it becomes acceptable for them to care about others. And we create caring organizations and altruism. So why? Why are we doing this? Because we are destroying the country that we love so much. We are sending 88% of the people home feeling it's all about numbers, and they are simply a means to your ends. And when we need them, fine. When we don't need them, we lay them off. So why? Because something's got to change, or it's insanity. Sergio Casella runs our operation in Lucca, Italy, that makes tissue equipment. He came and recently experienced our people-centric leadership, which he is one of the leaders of in Italy. And he came back and he reflected on the journey, and he said, I believe what we're doing is for the first time putting dignity in the workplace. People have a sense of pride of who they are and what they're doing. And when we give people a sense of dignity, we release the human potential. As somebody once said who toured Barry-Wehmiller, a guy named Bill Urey, an author of Getting to Yes, a Harvard professor, he said, in all due respect, Bob, what I saw was ordinary people doing extraordinary things. That is when we release the human potential. There's an expression Jerry Solomon told me when I began this journey, which I will never forget, which to me epitomizes what I've experienced in my 40 years in business, having bought 70 companies around the world. We paid people for their hands for years, and they would have given us their heads and their hearts for free if we had just known how to ask them. And people-centric leadership allows you to ask them exactly what it is that you want from them. You want them to share their gifts, and you want to appreciate them. The ripple effect of this. What is the effect of this? A byproduct is your company will dramatically do better because you're going to release the human potential. But let me go back and finish the story on Steve in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Steve, I said, Steve, how's it affected your life? And the words he chose were, my wife is talking to me. How many of you have had that statement in a report out session as you've measured the success of your lean initiatives? So when he said it to me, I was touched, and I said, help me understand what you mean. He said, well, I told you that I went home before we had people-centric leadership, I went home feeling unappreciated, unheard, and I find, in retrospect, I wasn't a very nice person when I went home. He said, matter of fact, I used to throw my hat in the door before I went in the house, and if she threw it back out, I'd go have a beer, but if my hat stayed in the house, I'd go into the house. He said, now that I've experienced people-centric leadership, I go home feeling better about myself. And when I feel better about myself, I'm nicer to my wife. And when I'm nicer to my wife, she talks to me. And I said, Steve, that is amazing. You've just given us a new metric for lean in this country. The reduction in the divorce rate in America is one of the most important metrics we're going to have. I want to connect that to one final dot because I think it is one of the most profound things that we have learned. And I hope this is one of the key thoughts you walk away with. A few weeks later, I was hiking in the mountains with my 40-year-old daughter who has 3 children and a lady named Beverly who was one of the group of hikers. And Beverly had a family counseling class in Dallas, Texas, a TV program, and people would call in with family issues, and Beverly would answer them. And so I said that to Jennifer. I said Beverly had this TV show. So Jennifer asked her the question any one of you would have asked her. Beverly, what's the most important thing in raising young children? Because Jennifer has 3. And Beverly thought a minute, and she said, a good marriage. She said, there's other things that are important, but our studies show that a good marriage is the foundation of raising good children. And all of a sudden, I connected Steve and his relationship with his wife. We are destroying the generations of young children because we are sending people home broken, and they face the challenges of marriage, they face the challenges of raising children and in getting along in our society, and we send them home broken. And so our children are seeing marriages stressed by the way we are, those 88% of the people stressed. And so what do they experience? They're experiencing broken marriages. Truly human leadership, the new vision of AME, can profoundly affect family lives, therefore community lives, and therefore the conflict we see in families, communities, our schools, and our society. Jim's dream is possible. We can change the world when we put the fuel of people-centric leadership into this. A manufacturing renaissance, not the decline of American manufacturing, the renaissance driven by people-centric leadership. It didn't say enterprise excellence and people-centric leadership. It said people-centric leadership and enterprise. It starts with your profound responsibility for the lives of the people. You take these initiatives back and affect their sense of who they are and what they do. You have a chance to profoundly affect the children of this world through these initiatives. We're talking about enriching the lives and building communities, which is what we somebody asked me, why don't you run for president? And I said, why would I do that? I can change the world with you much quicker than I can in Washington, D.C. We don't need politicians or anybody else. We just need you to understand the profound impact you make on people. You can do this. We can do this. We can change the world. And I want to leave you with a story. When I gave this talk to this large consumer products company, at the end of it, one of the gentlemen raised his hand and he said, Mr. Chapman, I agree with what you said, but what if corporate doesn't endorse it? Or in what you might say, what if my boss doesn't endorse it? And I thought a minute, and I don't know why, but the Wizard of Oz came to my mind. Because remember, the Tin Man and the Scarecrow and the Lion and Dorothy were all seeking something they didn't think they had. They didn't think they had, and when the little dog went behind the big facade of the wizard, and it was just an elderly gentleman pulling the steam and the lights, and he said to each one of them, you have what you need. You just need to use it. So I said to this gentleman, what do you need from corporate? Do you need a memo on Monday that says we're going to start being good to people? Do you need a requisition for a capital expenditure? Do you need to change the strategic plans? What do any of you need that you don't have right now today to make a difference in this world? You just need to see your role as a steward of the lives impacted by the ideas that you generate here. And I said to this gentleman, there's 75 of you from around the world here. Just go out and become truly human organizations. Actually genuinely care about the people under your stewardship. Or somebody once said, can you make it simple? I said, yes, just treat these men and women that are affected, that you work with, like you want your son and daughter treated. Pretty simple rule, because that's all that's required. I will leave you with one last thought. I was giving a speech to a group of presidents in Los Angeles a few years ago, and at the end of my talk, I said, does anybody disagree with anything I said? Nope. 60 or 100 people said, we absolutely agree. I said, then ask me a question. So a gentleman in the back raised his hand and said, Mr. Chapman, I love what you talk about. It makes sense. I agree with it. But God damn, I think it would be hard to do. And I thought a minute and I said, are you married? He said, yes, I am. And I said, do you find being married easy? He thought of me and said, no, God damn, it's hard to be married. And I said, what in life that's worthwhile is easy? This is the hardest thing you will ever do, because you have to step outside everything that you've been taught in college and experienced in business. You have to genuinely walk away from this conference caring about the people whose lives you'll touch with these incredibly powerful programs. And if you do that, Jim will see his dream realized, and I will too. So thank you for your time.